Hello, good evening. Welcome, everybody. Thank you, Kilt. I've heard that my music is kind of scary. Last time, I hope it's not scary. That would be terrible. All right. Well, tonight we are going to go over a few things here. Um, and like it said, we're going to be discussing for the Delphi murders. Are we looking for more people? The other question and thing that I keep hearing from anybody was that didn't Kegan Klein say he was waiting in a car? So why has he not been arrested or gone down here? And why did they say 2 counts of murder and that was it? So, yeah, we're going to talk about that. And we're going to go over a recent Doug Carter video with the local Indianapolis news. And hopefully I won't have any trouble sharing the screen when I do that. We'll give just a couple more minutes to let other people join here in our group. And how's everybody doing? I'm sitting here right before I do a live. My sister calls me, and then while I'm talking to my sister, one of my daughters calls me. I'm like, really? When I'm not doing anything, there's nobody calling the house, right? And then all of a sudden at once, everybody calls me. Isn't that how it goes? It's like, what is up with that? So, all right. Hello, Earthkeeper. All right. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to try to show this video from the recent Doug Carter interview, like today, recent. And I just want you to capture some things that he's saying. And let me go to share screen. And let me go to here. And it wants me to do weird stuff. Don't be weird on me, screen. Okay. Uh-oh. I have no idea what that means. Your browser locked. Click the screen icon. In your address bar to allow access. Oh, there it goes. Share the screen. Here we go. There we go. Now it's allowed. Man, I don't need that kind of stuff. Hello, Miss Amy.
Well, hello.
My computer wants to fight with me.
Oh, man.
Yeah. All right, now let's do this again. We're going through the Doug Carter news update. I'm going to try to do entire screen. I'm going to allow. All right, Amy, if you see something funky that it's not going on, you let me know. And I have to always give it a couple seconds here. So let me go over to the video screen here. Pull up the news. This is Fox 59. I'm not starting it from the very, very beginning. You can go see that yourself. And it's called The Next Chapter. So let's see what is said here. And we'll go forward.
Superintendent Carter here now on the red couch. I want to start with taking us to the day when you knew you had the evidence and you could actually not announce it, but that you could make the arrest. What was that day like?
First of all, thank you for welcoming me here. It was surreal, and I was not for us. I was so excited about the family, to be able to talk with the family and to the community, and maybe now this is going to start that process of healing. That would be my hope.
Yeah. Congratulations. I knew that, many of us thought that you would retire, at a certain time. And then we knew that you probably wouldn't, because of how important this case.
Hold on. It's refreshing.
Case was. I mean, every case is important.
It is.
And I know that because I know you. But can you dive into that? This community was rocked. The country was in a different way, perhaps because of the innocence of two 8th graders.
I've said all along, it's every town USA.
Yeah.
And I think that's the dynamic of how this has grown and how it's gained such momentum, Angela.
Mm-hmm.
But to see it now and to see maybe that community that's become so special to me and to all of us, start that process of getting back to some semblance of normalcy. It warmed my heart, quite frankly.
You work so closely with your team, all of the state troopers, the detectives, the prosecutor's office, the U.S. Marshals, the sheriff's department. When it came to saying, okay, now we have this, we know this is going to get out. How do we do it? And we are only going to say his name, and we're going to give the mugshot.
Right.
How does that discussion look? Is it an easy discussion? Do you debate it? How does that even come together?
Well, the debate's good for everything,
Absolutely.
right? So there certainly was a lot of debate with strategy throughout this entire process. But I felt enormous responsibility, but not near the responsibility that those frontline detectives felt. So my job was to support them in everything that they did, not question them, but just support them.
Yeah.
And I hope that I did that. I know I did it to the best of my ability. The strategy with release, we've always realized the best way through trouble is right up the middle. So we're going to do what we always think is right. Not necessarily what people want to hear, but we're going to do what we believe is right.
Oops. Okay. Sorry about that. What I wanted to do in the update of all of this was to just kind of have the words that he was saying, because he does repeat some of the items where he talks about that he strategically did this, right? And we had, everybody has had discussions about this case and, what's going on, what's happening, why did we learn so little? Why is it really not totally unprecedented that they wouldn't share the probable cause affidavit, but extremely unusual? And I know for our group, when we were talking about it, we found it interesting that in the charges, the only thing that was really announced was the charges saying 2 counts of murder, right? It wasn't specific. It did not go specific to say, it's a first-degree murder charge or whatnot, right? We weren't hearing stuff like that. So I'm going to also address the fact that, Amy, and you can comment on this, we also talked about, hey, what happened to the part where we hear that Kegan Kline states that he's in a car waiting. He's in a vehicle waiting. They didn't
Right.
say specifically for whom, but they said he's in the car waiting. So then why have we not had any charges announced by him? And I think it goes back into the comment also that said strategic. We're going to be going in just a second. We're going to go into what the actual Indiana state law is and proves and shows that it remember the investigation's not done. And this will kind of also, I think, clear up that we definitely are looking for more people. So, Amy, you want to address the strategic stuff again?
Oh, yeah, that was just one of the things that Mr. Carter said, before the weekend, that the arrest was strategic. He's said it before too, not just recently, but he said it a few times regarding this case, that it's complex. And I picture in my mind that means maybe more than just the one person, the bridge guy, right? Maybe there is more than one. And the fact that it does involve the fake social media profiles on the end with Kegan, and he was the last person to communicate with Libby the day she was murdered. And there's a lot of not consequences, I'm sorry. There's a lot of coincidences around it, right? That it makes me feel like there's more than one person. I don't think that we were ever meant to just take this Richard Allen person and put him in the place of where Kegan Kline was, and just let that plant everything that we've heard from ISP in press releases and their communication with the public throughout the course of the investigation over these years. That I don't think we have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. That it is complex, right? That would make it complex because you have the Kline element and the biggest ring of the CSAM sharing weirdos in Indiana state history, and a lot of complex elements involved with not trying to, you don't want to screw up this case, that's for sure, if they're thinking also in a legal sense, which I would imagine most law enforcement would also be thinking in terms of, we got to make sure that this, whatever charges come about with this case eventually, that they stick in court, and that there's plenty there for the prosecutors to work with, and everybody wants to do a really good job on this, I'm sure of it. And it could be so many different things that he's meaning, but I do feel like there's more to this than just this Richard Allen. I don't take that figure in my mind and just say he's the lone wolf and this is it. I don't see that.
Well, there's some things that I don't think that we can ignore. If you have been out there watching the Delphi case, and like I said, in just a second, we're going to listen to the specific Indiana law and what the wording of the charges means. And this is why, after I heard this tonight, it was like, you know what? We weren't planning a live, but we need to do one now. So here's the things we can't ignore. And I think that a lot of people who've studied this case, even if you haven't been with it long and you've only been with it within the last 2 years, you would probably agree with this. You cannot ignore that an Anthony Schatz profile was identified communicating with Libby. Mm-hmm. No matter what, you cannot ignore that happened and that they communicated with that. The other thing you can't ignore is that the intentions and stuff of that was the CSAM, right? Was CSAM materials and things like that were going on. So the discussion, the pointing of that Kegan was trying to get a deal, and then all of a sudden the only thing that kind of stopped was We're not hearing about a deal. All of a sudden, Kegan has them searching, not for a week to check with it, not for a couple weeks. We're talking for a month, over a month and a half, about 5 weeks, 6 weeks, that they're looking.
Right.
And they're looking in the water for something. You can't ignore that. So let's go ahead, and now this piece I'm going to play for you is only audio. So nobody panic about video. You're only going to hear, this is a clip from the murder sheet. Tonight, they dropped a very a short podcast. It's the Murder Sheet podcast. I'm sure you've heard of them. And if you're not subscribed to them, do so, whether it's on podcast. They also have a YouTube channel. It will not have been dropped yet on the YouTube channel. But I would like for all of you to hear this discussion of what was read out about the Indiana law, and that the specific charge of only 2 counts of murder, not specified, right? Just 2 counts of murder, and what that actually means. And that will not surprise you if you think there's more arrests. Let me put it that way. So I'm going to play this portion.
Difficulty finding an
appropriate person.
an appropriate public defender in Carroll County who's prepared to take the case.
Yeah. So it will be very interested to watch that process going forward. Because again, he has a right to an attorney. He has a right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty. It is the burden of the state to prove that he killed or participated in the crime that led to the deaths of Abby and Libby.
No, it's interesting. You changed your wording there at the end. Can you explain why?
Well, today, finally, the case dropped on my case. So we were able to look specifically at the charges that were laid out against Richard M. Allen. And what we saw intrigued us.
So you go on my case, you will find that Richard Allen is charged with 2 counts of murder. More specifically, he's charged with 2 counts of murder under 35-42-1-1, parentheses 2. Can you read that relevant section?
The relevant section of the Indiana Code of Criminal Law and Procedure is that that is defined as murder, a person who kills another human being while committing or attempting to commit arson, burglary, child molesting, consumer product tampering, criminal deviant conduct under IC 354242 before its repeal, kidnapping, rape, robbery, human trafficking, promotion of human trafficking, sexual trafficking of a minor, or carjacking before its repeal. So that's essentially felony murder.
So in other words, they don't have to prove under this charge, they do not have to prove that Richard Allen deliberately, willfully, personally took the lives of those 2 girls. What do they need to prove?
They need to prove that he participated in one of the crimes mentioned under the statute that ultimately resulted in the deaths of the 2 girls.
And under that statute, to be clear, he doesn't even have to have personally killed the girls or even be aware that that was the plan.
If Kevin comes to me, we've used this example before, but I think it's important to kind of highlight what we're talking about. If Kevin comes to me and says, Anya, let's do a felony, let's rob a bank, and I say, great. And then we go in our car, and I'm the getaway driver, and he goes into the bank and kills a teller and runs out with the money, we drive away, then we're arrested. He's not the only one that's going to be facing murder charges. I agreed to participate in the bank robbery that led to the death of the teller. I, therefore, am liable under this statute. I can be charged with murder as well.
So all they need to prove is that Richard Allen was a willing participant in a felony, more specifically one of the felonies on that list that Anya read. He has to be proven to be a willing participant in such a felony that resulted in the death of these two girls.
So this can mean several things, although we believe that one is more likely than the other.
One thing, for instance, is it could mean that he did not intentionally mean to kill the girls, that it was an accident.
Which, knowing what we know about how this crime occurred, and if you recall the probable cause affidavit we released that was filed against Ron Logan, you will have a sense of what we're talking about, that it seems highly unlikely that this crime was an accident.
So then what's the other option?
Somebody else was involved.
Yes, the other option is that two or more people, one of whom was Richard Allen, planned and participated in a felony that resulted in the deaths of these two girls.
So,
Wow. And so that was the murder sheet, right?
yes, that was the murder sheet.
Who are
you
Kevin
wanted-
Greenlee and
Um,
Kane.
yes, and they are great. They have found a lot of information for this case that I think wouldn't have been exposed. And I think a lot of information that we wouldn't have known, or the public couldn't have helped on. So here's the one thing that we didn't get to watch because, hey, by the way, I'm asking for a new computer for Christmas, so hopefully I won't lag anymore on video. But anyway, or it's just me and I don't know what the heck I'm doing, which is possible. I'm new. Here's the other thing that will shock you first before we go into this deepness. The other thing that will shock you is that when Doug Carter was on the Fox 59 News, I will put that clip in there for you guys to be able to go find the Fox 59 News. I'll put it in the description. It'll take me a minute to figure it out, but I'll figure it out. And I will also put a link that you can go to the podcast. You can listen to, they normally don't drop on, what's today, Thursday? They normally don't drop on Thursdays. They drop their podcast on Tuesday, but they dropped this one for the update and some information that they found out. For you can watch the whole thing. The one thing that Doug Carter says in that interview is that since the arrest, they have already got 200 tips. 200 tips. So, let me look here. I got a question. Really, why was KK say he was waiting in a red Jeep? This is intriguing. Because I think he was waiting in the red Jeep. So, speculation warning. Speculation warning. I need a slide for that. Speculation warning. We know that Kegan said he's waiting for somebody. We know that the river was searched and looked for something, right? Some things.
Not very far from where he lives.
Right. Not far from him and his dad's house.
Mm-hmm.
They go and they search the water and they search the water and they do it for like 5.5 weeks. Well, if they go and after 5 and nothing, but it's not as valuable as wow, we found a murder weapon, but it is something to confirm something that Kegan says. Speculation. What if that confirmation goes with, I don't know, maybe Kegan named some people who were involved with him, and maybe one of them was Richard. And after that, and they looked, and then they suddenly were able to go to Richard's house with a probable cause affidavit that let them search the house for 12 hours, and then for him to be able to be arrested. And he's taken into custody. And we know things were removed from the house. We know stuff was dug around out there, right? We don't know what it is. So based on what we just heard of what the two murder counts, and what's interesting about that is we talked about that ourselves, our group, here with Justice Served Daily had this discussion. Because my wonder was, now I know all of you were like, oh my God, we didn't get much information, right? We didn't hear a lot during that press conference. Well, it was almost more about what we didn't hear versus what we
Right.
heard, because
It wasn't said. Yeah.
you know, when you hear about that, oh, it's 2 murder counts. Well, our first discussions with our group that helps with Justice Served Daily were all like, why was it not first-degree murder? Why was it not accessory to murder? Why didn't it have something like that? Why was it only charged with and stated from 2 counts of murder? Well, then we hear we'll put that out there too. I'm sorry, reading a thing. Know where I can find the testimony to the law enforcement. Okay. We'll share what we can, what we have, at least put it that way. So we now know that because of Indiana law, the 2 murder counts can mean that, speculation, they can mean that they don't have to prove he actually murdered them.
Right.
They don't have to prove he murdered him. They can probably prove maybe he's the bridge guy by appearance. Maybe they can prove that, or prove that the guy had the gun. We always hear about a gun that's brought out, pointed to the girls, that would make them go down the hill. But since they don't have to prove he murdered them, they just have to prove that he participated in a crime that led to the murders. And then when you hear the list of the murder, of what those charges would be that you participate in, for you to be charged with 2 counts of murder, it would be, and I'm going off of my, little notes that you're sitting right here: molestation, rape, kidnapping, human trafficking, right? I mean, all the other ones he named, it's not going to be any of those. So we already know that if they're saying that, does that mean that they think the other person they want to get may have committed the murders?
Possibly. Or what I was thinking, maybe some of the complexity, right, and the strategic nature of the arrest and the complexity of the case is more than one person involved. Okay, we don't know. It could, more than one is 2, or it could be 20. We don't know. But let's just, for speculation purposes, say, okay, well, let's just take somebody like the Kleins, the 2 of them. Let's say this is just an example, and then Richard Allen. Well, okay, maybe it's not a matter of knowing who they need to arrest or anything like that, but who did what was each person's role. There might be needing to suss out some of those details of we know that murders were committed. There were other crimes committed too, right? Let's say that there is that of kidnapping with a deadly weapon, right? That could be bridge guy with his gun, but he didn't actually do the murder. Or there could be that whole thing of, I don't know, was there something in there? Because there's some SA things in there. Maybe that happened, and then there was some kind of violation that way. And then the murders took place with somebody else, but they were maybe not necessarily all in collusion together, or maybe they were, maybe it was very well orchestrated and everybody had their own preset roles and knew what was going to happen prior to the thing happening. Or maybe it was a hot mess express and they just got lucky with not having witnesses there and being able to evade police, and it wasn't really planned to go the way it did. Who knows on that stuff? But to me, I would say, yeah, definitely. Maybe he's not the exact one that killed them, but he participated in some way.
Right.
Kegan participated in some way. Was he below the bridge? He sure as heck wasn't the guy on the bridge.
Right.
Okay. Was Tony there? Was there some other person there that we haven't heard of? Was it planned online? Is there digital traces online of a plan of people stating what they were going to do that day, whether or not it ended up being the total outcome of what actually happened? Was there, as some people have talked about the idea of the production of CSAM materials related to the murder in a very heinous sort of crime where, maybe there was some profit to be made by the murders.
And Miranda, that's kind of where, agree with that's a possibility. I mean, we can't ignore, like we said at the beginning, we can't ignore that in Anthony Schott's profile spoke to Libby. We can't ignore that in Anthony Schott's profile stated to one of them that, hey, I was supposed to meet her, but she never showed up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we definitely know, and if you watch any of my other videos, you will definitely know that I believe there is a CSAM component and definitely a CSAM ring that will be completely busted. We've had, the international petty ring that's been busted in Indiana before. And we talk about other people who have been arrested since Kegan Kline went in jail that could be because of tracing that lockbox or Dropbox that he had or other materials and stuff like that. And I think that, that's also probably why they're not going to give him a plea deal on his CSAM. He committed all of that, but they probably told you, we're not going to give you a deal on that we think you may have been there. And you better talk or you're the one going down for murder. And that would be a pretty good reason for him to start blabbing his mouth.
Spilling the beans. Well, too, yeah. And he still might be holding stuff back. And knowing him, he is, because he's very slow to admit the full truth on anything. It's like, it's like pulling teeth to get him to admit to anything that doesn't fit into his little kind of make-believe world he's created for himself. But, he could have very well played a part from behind a computer screen. I don't even know if there's any, what you would call that in terms of criminal law or anything, but who's the guy that grooms and, does the catfishing of these children, does the grooming, pretends to be someone they're not online, and then sort of arranges for somebody else to meet them in real life, possibly, allegedly. I don't know, right? Maybe he did arrange for these men, these older dudes, right? Because we know of those conversations from the transcripts from the interrogation on Kegan. There were those accounts, right, where the conversations were, how do you feel about an older dude like in his 40s? What do you think about that? As gross as this sounds, I don't even like to say that, but like, I mean, that was part of it, where he's pretending to be Anthony Schatz, and he's got, and he's rich and he's cool and he's hot, and
and honestly, that was being said, I would think it would be the older guy trying to convince her of that rather than a younger guy, but
might be. But if it's an Emily Ann voice, right? If it's the Emily Ann account, that's the female that's supposed to help them feel comfortable in talking about that, right? That's part of the whole grooming thing that Kegan loves to do.
Right.
And he's manipulative, right?
And remember, when we talk about the probable cause affidavit, when they first did the search warrant on the Kline's house, that was like, like within less than 2 weeks after the murder, but that was not for the Delphi case. That search warrant was given from the FBI getting information that somebody was using Snapchat, and I believe it was Instagram at the time, and that they were using that to get images of girls. They go out to the house, they knock on the door. Hey, is this your IP Comcast address? Yes, it is. Is it a secured line? Tony says, yes, it is. Okay, well, sir, do you have Snapchat and Instagram? No, but my son does. Okay, son, here you go. Do you have Instagram and Snapchat? Yes, I do. Okay, well, grab your devices and stuff, and we're going downtown. Grab all of your devices. The devices that go downtown are only devices that he used in 2015 and 2016. If you go to the charges that he has, those charges, 2015 and 16 charges, are only for females they can identify are underage and females that they were able to locate, which were all in the state of Indiana. And that's where those 30 charges of CSAM come in. You can't ignore the conversation. Yes, police can lie to you. But in the conversation, the police were telling Kegan, hey, you know what? We don't think it's you. Again, this could be a lie. We don't think it's you. We think it's your dad. So could your dad have done this? When she's talking to Barbara McDonald. At first, like, no, he was with me. But he does hunt deer and pulls deer out of the woods, drags deer out of the woods. So I guess, yeah. What? Why would you even say that?
And it does. That's where the talk then kind of shifts from his charges that he's, sitting there facing in Miami County Jail with the CSAM, and it shifts to talking more about Delphi, right?
Yeah.
And it goes into the stuff of, well, your Anthony Schott stuff is tied to this all over the place. It's got you written all over it, but we don't think you did it. We think there was somebody else maybe where all this was pinging and happening, with this IP address. So, they really tried hard to get him to implicate his father, and he just wouldn't.
Right.
Except for those little concessions like that, right? The more you get Kegan to talk, the more he starts saying stuff like that. Like, oh yeah, well, he could do it. My dad, he was pretty rough with us, or, what the stuff that he said about growing up and what it was like to grow up with his dad, he would start to trickle out some info there that was it was implicating him.
Yeah.
Saying at least it is possible.
And remember, we all heard lots of stuff about what type of evidence did we really have, right? Because a lot of people were saying, okay, well, they said we have DNA. But, I questioned whether we had viable DNA, because I feel like this case would have been over a very long time ago if we had viable use of DNA from an actual perpetrator. So we do hear the rumor. I know the stuff is out there. There's not full confirmation, but we hear about that there was a cat at Richard's
Fibers, yeah.
And we remember that when the second search warrant that was done on the Klein's home, that a dog was taken. We don't know what reasons the dog was taken, but the assumption was out there, well, if it was animal hair, maybe that's why they took the dog.
Right.
Well, if they're out there at Richard Allen's house and they're looking for the cat, maybe we're looking for, cat hair that may have been left on something.
If they exhumed a pet, if that rumor is true, if they did exhume a pet, and that's an if, we don't know. Maybe that's what was in the shoebox. Oh, I hate to say that. That's terrible. But maybe,
and we also talked, the shoebox could also be that he probably got rid of the boots, but maybe he didn't get rid of the boots box.
Exactly.
Or maybe the trinkets that were kept from the girls were in the box.
Could have been a whole stack of thumb drives that had copies of whatever he was trying to sell that was a digital thing, Who knows? Maybe that's what he did. Would he sell some thumb drives out of a shoebox to people? Ooh.
Yeah. And somebody commented about, people talking about a snuff film and stuff like that. You know what? That's been a, thought process too, because unfortunately, the other videos that I've done about these international child petty rings that was here, some of them show abusive stuff beyond what you could even think is bad. It's 100 times worse. And then there are some people who, may be into that. And maybe that was something that who knows? I mean, that could have been the purpose or not been the purpose, because it could have been that they were trying to go there and think that they were going to molest or rape the girls. And then they maybe they fought them hard. And the other thing that we talked about, stuff they could take out of that house, horrifically, I'm sure all of you, it made your skin crawl and the hair go up in your neck, is that what if he had photos? I mean, what if he kept photos, one of the scene, which I would think he would keep on a digital drive so he wouldn't be caught with the evidence. But the other part is, what if he kept photos that he developed and made extras that he did for the family for the funeral that he made for Libby, and kept pictures of Libby, and they found them in the house too? I mean, again, speculation here, but people who are murderers, or God forbid, I hear the serial killer thrown out there, which I will say there's a lot of us looking into missing girls, unsolved cases about that. But I think that listening to the information, again, that I'll just highlight that with those murder counts, they don't have to prove that he murdered them, because it is a belief that the way those counts are, that they just have to prove that he participated in a crime that led to the murders. And in those lists of crimes that this could fall under is molestation, kidnapping, human trafficking, and rape. So, that, obviously we know that happened. And I would think that the reason, and lots of people think this too, that, the reason they're keeping that closed is they don't want to give that person a heads up of what all they know, what all they have, and how they may be coming after them. And again, I'll point out the interview that I will put in the underneath the video when we're done, is that today when Doug Carter was interviewed, he brought up that there has already been over 200 tips since Richard Allen was arrested. Why would that be? I mean, Amy, I know we talked about maybe it's just for that the fear factor's a little bit gone because they caught Richard. Are you there, Amy? Oh.
Sorry. Hi.
Yeah.
I had myself muted. If people were afraid of him, right? If you suspected that it was him and you kind of knew enough of him and his coming and going around town and what he was up to and what he was like, now that he's behind bars, it would stand to reason that people would maybe be more willing to speak about what they remember. And it also could help people who hadn't thought of him now that he's in handcuffs and the press conference. Maybe people are starting to think about him and their relationship and dealings with him and remembering things, or something that may have seemed a little bit odd at the time, but they didn't connect it to this crime. They just thought it was something odd about him. That could jog the memory, I would think.
Well, obviously, people who may have seen something that seemed weird to them at the time, may have known him, or the family may have been around him at things. I mean, those are going to be the people who call in and be like, "Oh my God," right? Like, I mean, I'll give an example. We had somebody who called the other night, or joined us, I'm sorry, on another show the other day, and they were on a show before then. And we were going through people who have been arrested after Kegan Kline as far as CSAM is concerned. And when that happened, we had one of our watchers on here who found out a man that they knew, their family knew, was arrested for CSAM, and they had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that could be as easy as lots of people in shock right now, right? Going, "Oh my God,
Yes.
he's arrested. I knew him, or I worked with him." Which is a good time for me to say this. and I know the Murder Sheet emphasized this on their show. I know Doug Carter and the news emphasized on the show. So let me say this: the tip line and the tip email address is running at the bottom of the screen.
Yes.
And please, if you know of him, if you've had interactions, if you knew the family, if you worked with them, if anything like that, even if you think it is unimportant, they want people to call in
Right.
about that. So call in or send an email.
You
Send
can
it
be anonymous. You do not have to give your name. It can be anonymous. And even with the email, you have the ability, if you need to attach a photo of something, or, sometimes those things can get the point across a lot better than putting it in a very detailed paragraph. I mean, say what you need to, but if you also need to attach a photo or a document or something, the email allows you to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're gonna, that you can kind of mention that, and when they see it, I'm sure they're gonna just maybe expand any more questions if they've seen anything or saw anything or whatever. I mean, he is arrested, so you don't have to worry about. He's not getting out of jail.
Nope.
I do know there was confusion of if it's a $20 million bail or if it's no bond. Guess what? It don't matter. He ain't getting out of jail. He is not
Right.
getting out of jail.
It is stated in my case that, it is there that there is a $20 million bond that was, I think on the 28th is when the $20 million bond was put out there for him, but he's not going to be able to pay a percentage of that, plus they said in the press conference that there was no bond. So pick which one, either one, he's not going anywhere.
Right. And speculation of what our group has talked about and things like that. I mean, we all know that the one reason that the police were telling Kegan that we believe your dad is involved somehow is because they could not determine which people who had access to the Anthony Shots account from his house would have been talking, right?
There were two voices, distinct voices, two different ways of speaking, that they could identify two different people pretending to be this Anthony Shots person.
Yeah.
So what's to say that there weren't more, right?
Yeah. He could have opened, maybe Kegan opened it up. Or maybe Kegan was just as truthful as, I don't know, but saying, hey, it would have just been only me and my dad who used that, right? Because he said, oh, my dad had access to it.
Maybe his dad sold the account to somebody else, maybe to a Richard Allen. Yeah, I sold the password and username. Here, have some fun.
Yep. So, if they think, if they think Tony Klein is involved, if they think because of Kegan and they were telling Kegan the truth about that, and then they were on him and they tell Kegan, hey, you don't want to tell us crap, that's fine. We're going to charge you with murder charges and maybe we're going to give you the death penalty, right? Maybe we'll go after the death penalty if you don't tell us anything, because it can only be you, because we definitely know that you made the Anthony Shots account. And so maybe that's it. So he would have had to come up with something. And maybe the something was the, people who were there. Because again, we can't ignore that he said he was waiting in the car. So let's do, this is some major speculation, okay? Speculation alert. Would Kegan Klein go wait in a car for Richard Allen at a gas station that is just down the street? Because after you look at, and if you guys haven't seen it and you guys want me to do a show showing the distance, that CVS is walking distance. You walk right there to the bridge from there.
But would you want to walk back in the kind of looking like the killer would have looked coming back?
Well, it depends. I mean,
you wouldn't want to be seen that way, because there's no way, right?
Well, one, I would think remember there's stuff in the water. So did they clean off? Did they wash off their hands?
But like soaking wet, some guys that are like soaking wet, like in February in Indiana, that would look really weird, even though it was kind of warm that day. That would be bizarre. They would have to have gone back to his house, or he would have driven him back to his house, I would think, or he would have walked back
They
there.
could have. But my point is, would Kegan do that for Richard? Why would Kegan do that for Richard? I mean, I could see Kegan maybe doing that for his dad, because his dad is, very, direct and
My way or the highway.
forceful, right?
Yeah.
Controlling. He controls him.
Yeah.
He had to rely on his dad, his whole life. So is he going to listen to his dad, and he's going to be like, okay, you wait there out me. Maybe he was either dropping dad off to meet with them, if it was Tony, or dropping off whomever, right? To with Richard. And then he waited, and he took that second person home. And then Richard just went to his vehicle, his own vehicle.
They parted ways, right? Yeah.
Remember that, and if you don't know this, the other item that was picked up was that Richard Allen's car was taken from the scene, was taken from his house during the thing. So they're putting, now I can't think of what it's called, luminol. They're spraying that with luminol. They're checking for probably if the cat hair is involved, if luminol to find out blood. Because even if you cleaned up and cleaned off your boots and did all that kind of stuff, I would think a scene like that, unfortunately, no matter what, even the best of people cannot clean up everything, and they could still find, if they found a drop in there, it would get it. I mean, I would think otherwise they'd have to find that Jeep, if it was the red Jeep, and they don't have that Jeep anymore.
No.
So, yeah, it wasn't warm in normal temperatures, but for Indiana, February, that's warmer than usual. I mean, people were doing more stuff outside than normal. So, the other thing is they're going to try to figure out if there's a connection there. If Kegan, let's say if Kegan didn't bring up Richard, right? If that's not how they found Richard.
Right.
I mean, in my opinion, I feel that is the only way they found Richard, to be honest with you. But if that's not the way they found Richard, then how else did they find Richard? Is Richard involved in the CSAM? Right.
He could be somebody that came up with, an address, an email address, or a username that they became aware of through Kegan's Dropbox. And those pieces got put together, and, there you go.
Yeah.
And, or that in a combination of things. Maybe Kegan said something here and there to investigators. Maybe something turned up in the Wabash, right? That could corroborate something Kegan had said, or somebody he had named.
That let them believe that this Richard was involved.
Right.
They had to have something that have a major probable cause to go run up in there. They had to have something. It wasn't, and for it to come out of the blue like that, I mean, it could be the CSAM. They connected it and figured out finally who he was, because a lot of these guys, they have different usernames and they're hard to find. And just like the other international petty thing that was busted in Indiana before, they had some people they never found. They have
they had plenty of people.
Their username, and they don't know who they are still. So it could have been that, or it could have been Kegan dropped the dime on him. It could have been, or maybe they're going through stuff. Maybe somehow Richard already knew the Kleins. Maybe there was a connection already that, because he had family connections in Mexico, Indiana, in Peru, Indiana, in oh gosh, the little one.
Denver.
Thank you. I never want to remember Denver, Indiana, all of those towns, you
Mhm.
know, you've got Klein where he had lived himself, meaning Tony, the older, you know, he could have maybe met him. These are small
Mhm.
towns. They're not big towns.
Oh, and Speak Life says maybe from the bar. Touche. Yes, you know, they love their drink.
Yep.
So, and that's um, could have been some bonding that happened, some weird kind of bar stool type talk that
Yeah.
happens.
So, I mean, I think that, you know, when they said we're not finished, I mean, all of those, even before we heard today's information, which I'll repeat it in a second. I know we've got more people coming in. No matter what, the way Doug Carter and that press conference went, you know, everybody was like, you know, you heard it, but it's like, we're not done. We're still working.
Yes.
You know, we're not released. We can't release the full probable cause affidavit. We still need tips. You still need information. And then we find out, we listen to a little clip from the Murder Sheet podcast. So please go check them out. They have a new drop that happened today. It's a short one for, you know, it's normally like about 30 minutes, which is normally there's only an hour show, but we're talking about the Indiana law. So I'll share with all the new people here what we know in Indiana, that because Richard is not charged, is only charged. I'll put it this way: since he's only charged stating that he has 2 counts of murder. And if you weren't here to hear this, go back to the beginning of this show and you'll hear me play it. That means that they don't have to prove that he murdered them.
Right.
They just have to say he participated in a crime that led to murders, and they list those crimes, and I'm only bringing up the crimes that I believe can relate to this case, which would be if it was for molestation, underage, kidnapping, human trafficking, and rape. And so if those are the charges that he was committing that crime, maybe his intention was not that the girls were going to get murdered. He went there though to participate in that type of crime. They don't have to prove it. It's kind
It
of
doesn't have to be his intention, and it doesn't have to be anything that he took part in physically, right? It could have been somebody else that killed him, but because he was involved in some other element of those events that led to their murder, he was there. He didn't have to be complicit even, right? Or agree with it. He could have even been like, dude, chill out or something to whomever it was. It doesn't matter. That's still being able to be charged with the murder because that's the outcome. That's what
Right.
happened.
So an example kind of would be like, so Amy, if I sat here and I go, hey guys, let's go rob a gas station, and you go with me, because I know you just hang right in there with me, right? You'd go with me. We'd go to this gas station, and we're going to rob the gas station. And I shoot somebody, right? By the way, this is hypothetical. I would never rob a gas station.
I would rather like rob a bakery.
Well,
But okay, that's all right. We'll do the gas station.
you're trying to kill me. I am diabetic.
I'm so sorry.
Wow, that would be murder then, Amy, because you're letting me eat sweets beyond my control.
I
So,
take it back then.
Okay. Well, so my example is if you would go to the gas station, you're there to rob with me, you intended to do this robbery, and I commit a murder. You've all heard cases like that, right? Where the people go in there, they weren't they weren't trying to murder somebody. They didn't shoot the gun. But guess what? You were part of committing the crime. So now you are going down that a murder happened while you were trying to commit that crime.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's why you should never be the getaway driver.
Yeah.
Because then people will go in and stuff will get out of control and you're just sitting in the car. See, and if that's Kegan too, he was just sitting in the car and things got out of control. If that is really what happened, I mean, oh my God.
Yeah.
He's such an idiot.
Yeah. Yeah. And anybody who came in late, yes, I will be dropping the video that I was trying to show, that was an interview with Doug Carter today with the local Indianapolis news station. And then I will be dropping the link and stuff and info that you can go and or go look on wherever you listen to your podcast, or on YouTube for the murder sheet. And you can listen to the whole thing of everything that they talked about for it. But again, in the Delphi thing on the interview with Doug Carter today, he talked about the work that he's done. They talked about, how this isn't finished. And he did bring up that after Richard Allen has been arrested, we have already had 200 tips.
Mm-hmm.
200 tips. So I think that part of this
That's
is
very
not
positive.
I think that, yeah, I think it is very positive. People could be less scared to talk because Richard is in jail. They, could sit there and do that. And I think the police are looking for, that connection. They're looking for what that other connection is. And I think the charges of only being, and I say only being, although this is like the highest level of what you would think you could do, but for 2 murder counts, right? 2 counts of murder. And you hear about what that means, and that they're still taking tips. They still want tips. And they said, because if there is more people to be arrested, if there is more people involved, they're going to take them down. I think right now, here's my guess. This is in my opinion. This is speculation.
Lay it out there.
I think that Kegan he's already there. We would not hear that he was sitting in a vehicle waiting from somebody. And I think when he said that to them and gave them whatever they were looking for in the river, he already admitted he was there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that they're not dropping that he was the one who said it, and that they're trying to get the other person who was there that day.
Yeah. It could be just the 2 of them. How in the heck they came to know each other, we don't know. Maybe it was just through the magic of the internet and their sick obsession with these images, right? Maybe that's how they met. And it's Kegan's Dropbox that links them digitally. There's a connection. Maybe it's a connection because this dude's 50 years old. Kegan's dad is 50 something. Maybe they grew up together. Maybe they knew each other, played football against each other. Who knows? There could be all manner of connections in these small towns with people. Maybe they did meet at a bar, just sitting around shooting the stuff, just talking, shooting the shit, talking crap with each other. And then it just comes out that they start to share that they're interested in the same kind of perverted crap, right? And they bond over it in a sick way. Who knows? But I really think the difficulty would be in that determining who did what. Just like it's hard to tell which of the 2 voices is talking as Anthony Shots at that moment, whether it's the younger person who can talk like a young person, as in Kegan, or some old dude, some old fart that doesn't know how to talk like kids talk. And so it's a distinctly different voice using the Anthony Shots account. It would be the same way too, I think, in some of these different roles that could be going on with the crime. And some people were talking in chat about how if there is a kind of a photographic element there to the crime, if the murderers took pictures or film or something, so maybe somebody's got to be there. And they said that there was staging involved, as
right,
horrific as that is. And that's what makes all of us kind of tend to think along the lines of serial killer. And did Richard Allen have other victims in other places? And that's something that could probably be looked into. And there's also, I hate to interrupt you, but before I forget, wasn't there a mention too of what was that the guy said about the non-secular? Remember that?
Right.
And I always kept thinking, man, Kegan and Tony don't seem like super religious. Why would there be something religious and symbolic, some non-secular symbolism at the crime scene? But maybe this guy is. I don't know. Is this guy, does he go to church or something?
Here's the one thing, actually two now that it just popped in my head. I hope I remember the other one. One, when you were talking, that reminds me that we just want to share with everybody that Richard Allen is around Tony Klein's age, not Kegan Klein's age.
Mm-hmm.
So Richard is in his 50, and we've got, and then we've got Tony Klein, who's like 52, 53 right now, whatever. And so you've got Kegan, who's much younger. Not that they couldn't have met, and especially if he was just a user trying to get CSAM material, then yeah, they could have met easily that way, and it wouldn't have mattered either way. But yeah, I think that's it. The other things that were shared was we've heard that they had felt, and remember, because of the Ron Logan search warrant, that please remember that was done all the way back in 2017. They were showing what they were trying to look for based on what they saw and believed at that moment in the case. And of course, they're going to check the man's house that their bodies were found on, right? It was way back in the back of the property where it butts up against the woods there. But, they talked about that they felt the bodies were staged. And Carter made a thing about where he talked to the murderer and was saying during one of the videos and press conference where he was like, I feel like you have a little bit of conscience, right?
Yeah.
But you still have, and if let's say that, I don't know if they knew that there could be more than one person involved when he said it, right? He doesn't know that. He doesn't necessarily know that maybe at that time, because I don't think Richard was on their radar right away. I just don't think it was.
Yeah.
Not when we waited this long.
I thought the part of that whole press conference really fit in with the Klein family because of their love for race cars and all the imagery of like shifting gears and new course and the imagery that he was evoking of like race cars and stuff like that.
Ooh, Kelt just asked a really good question.
What'd she say?
Does Kegan know his daughter? You know what?
We've talked about that a bit.
Yeah, I mean, he could know the daughter because the daughter is just a few years younger than him. He could also maybe know the daughter and she doesn't know he knows the daughter because he is pretending to be Anthony Schatz or Emily Ann or anybody else on social media that's up there. Because remember, we got Richard's family, his kid, his daughter, at least we know for sure he has the daughter. She was going in the same school system.
Yeah.
And I know that you guys have probably seen it out there in different ways, but there's a picture of his daughter on that bridge a year later. If it's shown on social media at the time it was taken, he was there at the 1 year anniversary.
No, we don't know he was there.
Well, somebody
Her picture was taken there.
But it would be very creepy and coincidental if he decided to go there within 1 year and go right back to that bridge and take a picture of his daughter on that bridge.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he could have known her.
I just tend to think that if they're her senior pictures from high school, which that's probably what most people would assume, then that's the mom posting a picture of her senior picture much later because she,
yeah,
she's
we don't
older.
know.
She's quite a bit
we don't
older.
know at the timing of how old this girl is when the picture showed up on social media. she would have been close to graduating from college.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know that she graduated from college, but I'm just throwing that out there. So, but either way, that just shows that his daughter knew that that was a hangout out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And his daughter probably hung out with her with friends because that was a known hangout.
Yeah.
So, if you do look at, if she graduated from the same school, would be a thing. But Kelt, remember this: Kegan dropped out of school. He didn't sit there and fully graduate and continue going to school. Didn't he drop out like in 10th grade or something like that? We saw back then.
Mm-hmm.
Remember,
Something like that. Yeah.
we'd have to slip through our massive giant notebooks of materials to remember what we found out back then. So he may not have known her because he was a senior, because he wasn't going to school anymore. But yeah, I mean, but I still think that's just creepy to think
He
he's
was really
there.
big into social networking, though.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I think that there's just so many ways that the connections and stuff could have happened. It could be through the CSAM. It could be that maybe the families knew each other, and that's how Kegan or maybe Tony, I don't know, I'm speculating there. I feel like, in my opinion, I think that the only reason that Richard came on is because it just happened right after all of the search of the water happened and Kegan was talking and moved.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's how that guy probably got on the radar. And I think Kegan talked, and we definitely know that they're looking for somebody. And like we said, they do not have to prove that the two counts of murder they do not have to prove he murdered anybody.
Mm-hmm.
They just have to prove that he was committing a crime that ended up in the murders of the girls, which could involve, like we said, underage rape of a child, molestation, human trafficking, or kidnapping.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, we had a conversation about this before. Remember, we were talking about if somebody takes you forcefully from one spot to another, it doesn't matter that you don't get in a car, right?
All right. You can be, yeah. Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter, like, really how far you go. If you forcefully move somebody by gunpoint to go from here to there,
You've kidnapped them.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That is kidnapping, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
So, as we all believe, that Richard looks like the bridge guy, mm-hmm. and especially because we find pictures of him in a jacket that matches, mm-hmm. Finally, then he's the one holding a gun, getting the kids to go down the hill.
What if the crime scene does reflect two different killers, right? So that not quite sure who did what, there might be more than one person involved in the actual murder, so they can charge him with murder under that statute that Kevin quoted from that murder sheet clip, and then later refine the charges and then hopefully stack more on, because we know there were plenty of other crimes around the murder that can be charged, but they probably want to get some of the details nailed down as to who did what. That's just me speculating, but maybe that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And and then they can start stacking on charges on top of murder,
Right. You're right, Mama Bear, because remember, Kegan claimed that he was a photographer. That was why he said he had a Dropbox, because he had I'm using air quotes, you guys can't see it, because he had a photography business, which a lot of people who have done CSAM material and stuff like that, for some reason, a lot of them say that they have a photography business. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he said that he had, that kind of thing. And,
he's a recording artist, and, Pastor Klein is a recording artist and a bounty hunter and
Right.
other things. Yeah.
Oh my God. If you want to see something to make you laugh, go look at the Wikipedia that he made of himself of describing who Kegan Kline is, if it's still up.
Oh,
Oh my
gosh. I bet
God.
it's cringe.
I was like, are you worried that females are going to Google you to find your Wikipedia? Because that's ridiculous.
And he was working on that Vegas dream.
I guess so. Yeah. But I think that, that's kind of where we are. I mean, I think that we are where, they need more tips. So, if you know anything, if you know Richard, if you've seen Richard, if you went to school with Richard, lived next door to Richard, went into the CVS, I don't know what other option there could be. But if any function of anything that you've had with that, you need to go and call the tip line, send an email. That's what they need. They've already had 200 tips. We know they're looking for somebody else. If they're charging that they don't have to prove that Richard actually committed the murder, then that would have to mean that they think there's another person involved who did.
Yes.
Right?
And or it could be a both and or an and or. They also want as much detail as possible to really firm up the case against him so that there is no chance for mistrial. There's so much that is overwhelming that leaves no shadow of a doubt whatsoever in a juror's mind, and that he does not get to revisit through the Court of Appeals, because of somebody was doubted, a doubt there, that they can find somebody to give good testimony or provide more details that will help firm up a timeline, past behaviors or patterns of behaviors, things to just kind of assemble against him and possibly other people too.
Right, absolutely.
Because it is an open investigation.
If it was CSAM related and stuff like that, I think that they'll look at adding those charges and stuff also. Because remember, here's what's interesting about this all. Kegan and Richard are supposed to go to court at the beginning of the year. So my guess is that they're going to try to get the other person here by the end of the year.
That would be a good goal. That'd be a good Christmas. If there's another one out there to get, let's get them. Get them before the end of the year. Yeah.
And like I said, I mean, in my opinion, and I can't imagine that it came out for no reason. We can't ignore that Kegan already said he was waiting in a car. That's already out there.
He's at the scene of the crime. He has no business being in Delphi that day whatsoever.
And we already know that Kegan created Anthony shots. He admitted to it.
Yep. And that definitely led to, so many crimes. So many crimes.
Yeah. So I think between all of that, and plus that, we know that there was somebody who communicated to a friend of Abby and Libby's who said, "Oh, wow, they're missing. Well, I was supposed to meet her today, but she didn't show up."
Right.
Well, first of all, I don't care who was faking to be an Anthony shots. What a moron. What a moron. Right?
Yep.
I'm just thinking, you've got to be kidding me. So, I mean, I think that's where we kind of sit. I think the confirmation of looking at the charges of what we know of, leave it open, not prove it. They don't have to prove that he did it. They just have to prove he was there to commit something. They definitely believe they were there to commit something else, right?
Yes.
And when we talk about the bodies, and I want to be respectful and stuff and all of that. But I know that we have all heard that the part of Libby was covered up with leaves. And I know we've talked about, and I know all you true crime people know this out there, that a lot of times when there is remorse that is showed after the fact from anybody, they cover up the face and that of the person, right? They don't they can't deal with that, and so they cover that up. Now, whether that is, Richard, who maybe they think didn't actually murder him, who did it, or or didn't mean to do it, and then it happened, or if it's the other person, another person actually killed them, and then they ended up covering him up, you know. So they just have to prove there was some other crime going to be committed, which was either the molestation, kidnapping, human trafficking, or rape of underage kids. So I think this is the reason we thought we should go live and share this info. Is there anything else? Is there any questions or anything out there that somebody wanted to ask that we can is your case? But I heard on another video yesterday, the video wasn't able to be recovered from a technical issue, but who knows? Yeah, we're not sure what they captured in the water. But honestly, Speak Life Garden Homestead and permaculture. I got bad eyes.
Permaculture.
Permaculture. Okay. Wow, that's a long name. Yeah, I think no matter what they found in the water, they had to find something in order to prove that Kegan was telling them the truth. Right?
Oh, they may be talking about the security video from the marathon being corrupted by the.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, when the gas station video happened, the story is the FBI had to go there. They were asking them to go pick up the video. They used a drive to try to get the video off of the gas station, or and it didn't work. And that they took the hard drive of the video from the gas station, and now nobody knows where that is.
It's the thumb drive that was used to transfer, apparently caused it to become corrupt, the file to become corrupted, and it wasn't salvageable, apparently. But that was the fault of the FBI, I had heard.
Yeah. And yes, you're right. There is a rumor. Well, let me confirm this. It is not a rumor, but it is true that there are lawsuits being filed by news agencies that the probable cause affidavit is completely closed. Now, the judge is being overwhelmed with all of those happening. They have to set that there's an automatic. I'm trying to check if I can find where I posted that in our stuff, the private stuff.
The hearing, about the hearing to have it unsealed.
Yes, They have to do a hearing because they sealed it.
Within 20 days, they have to have posted the thing.
And we just looked at that too, because I just posted that in.
And they said that too, though, that was going to happen, that there would be a hearing to bring those concerns before the judge about whether or not they should remain sealed or not. So I think it's probably just going to be procedural. They have to have their reasons, I would imagine. If they put something out, it's, you said it yourself, it's going to be thoroughly redacted, one of those that might just have a few words on a page and the rest of it's a black Sharpie. But,
so this is the public notice that was posted. There is a hearing on November 22nd of 2022 at 9 a.m. in Carroll County Circuit Court. The hearing is to determine the sealing of the record for Richard M. Allen under case number 08C01-2210-MR-1. Carroll County Circuit Court is located on the 3rd floor in Carroll County Courthouse. at 101 West Main Street, Delphi, Indiana, 46923. So they have to do public notice that they will do the case. Why? Because normally the courts are public. So when a probable cause affidavit is put of what you're being charged for, and that the court is going to hear about it, normally that's supposed to be public record.
Right.
And that is why the news agencies, and if when you watch the Fox News one that I'll post about her talking to Doug Carter, she kind of was like, the reporter was like, well, I'm sorry, you know why we're doing this, right? She kind of didn't say it directly, but she was like, well, you know why we would do this, because normally this information would come out.
Mm-hmm.
And he did talk about, like, we get that, we understand that. We tried to stay down the middle of, the information of what we should do and what should we be careful with. But they do have a right to try to protect that information, especially if it's going to give a heads up to other people, maybe that they're going to go arrest, or where they got the info from, right? Anything like that. So I do feel like here's my guess. I feel like they're going to go, okay, we're going to release the probable cause affidavit, but it's going to be heavily redacted, right? It's going to be like maybe like what Kegan Klein's stuff looked like for CSAM.
Right.
A lot of pages, lots of stuff that was blacked out and not shared and stuff like that. And nobody would possibly want to mess this case up.
No.
Nobody wants him to walk.
I want them to redact the hell out of it if it protects the case and if it is able to help bring more people in. We don't want anybody involved in these murders, these crimes to be able to, get away with it if there's other people.
Right.
And if that arrest affidavit, the probable cause, that has anything that could jeopardize any of that, then keep it sealed. Damn. Keep it sealed. You know?
I mean, release it with it just saying at the top of it, probable cause affidavit, Richard, right? Richard Allen, maybe the case number, maybe
please,
the date.
And his height height of record, please. What is he officially?
Yeah.
For the love of God, somebody, please.
I mean, because, just like it says, even if, I'll pretend this, and I'm going to say a bad word. I don't give a shit what reason he was there. The asshole was there. He went and he had those girls. If he held a gun up to those girls and made them go down the hill, and that's all he did, I don't give a shit. He still went down the hill. I don't give a shit. He followed them. He made them go down there. And if he was only that part of it, his ass needs to go to jail. I don't care.
Exactly.
I don't care. That may be too biased for some of you out there. I'm so sorry. But I mean,
I care about due process. I really do. And I love all of that feel good stuff about, the American criminal justice system and how, it works. It's supposed to work this way, that everyone is presumed innocent until proven guilty, beyond a reasonable doubt, jury of the peers, and, public court, all that. I do believe that, but man, I'm really seriously challenged when it comes to this case, with my own personal bias, because I don't really care. If it's gonna hurt his defense, I guess the only thing you can say is, if it hurts his defense, that could possibly give grounds for an appeal, or it could give grounds for a mistrial, or a hung jury, or just whatever. We don't want any of that garbage. Mm-mm.
Yeah. I think inbred outcast. Oh, that makes me sad of your name. It's just what it is. Couldn't that be a separate probable clause for different persons? Why would they
separate PC, personal computer?
Oh, sorry. Wait, and they have put into the RIPC that pertains to other, unless this.
Oh, maybe it is probable cause.
Yeah, I think it was probable cause.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think that what they're worried about is that the probable cause itself would mention that was that like and I don't know. I'm guessing these words here. But let's say it says that he participated in the action of going there to meet girls, to rape them, molest them, whatever.
Traffic,
They-
kidnap and traffic.
right, kidnapping them, whatever. And then when they say he participates in, or whatever that they say like that, then they're going to give away also, like, even though I kind of think they are by keeping the tip lines open, that they believe somebody else could be involved. So I think, and who knows what else is in there. Maybe it tells exactly how they got him. And if it's CSAM, then maybe they don't want the other guy that maybe they're trying to catch on CSAM to know that they're looking at CSAM still to find him, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever it could be that they're trying to locate him or find him through. So I think it probably gives info, but I understand the need to know. And here, but let me say this, even if we know, please everybody brace yourself. Do you know how long it took for Kegan Kline? I mean, 2017, we knew he had CSAM. It waited to 2020 till he got busted. None of us knew he got arrested and busted till 2021. And we're still sitting here and they keep delaying it. So you better prepare yourselves, because I think it's going to be a while before we go to court on this, because right now they don't even know if he has an attorney, because all of a sudden he's like busted, so they don't know. He didn't have an attorney lined up. He didn't know the charges were coming, so he has to find an attorney. There's going to be delays, there's going to be postponements, there's going to be all kinds of stuff from it. So it's going to be a while before he goes to jail, unless he takes a plea to turns up maybe another person or persons.
Holy cow.
And there you go.
And wow.
Yep.
The thing just keeps on going ad infinitum. Wow, no, that's a nightmare.
Yeah. So we're going to be following this case for much longer. we thought 5.5 years was a while, right? But so, well, I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you. We kind of threw this one up here, but as soon as we learned some more information, and we've been watching stuff and looking up some information and trying to connect the dots of some people and other things, and then we learned some of that, and it's like, oh my God, that's exactly what we were talking about. And it just confirms that to us that there are, they do suspect more people involved. I'm going to phrase it that way. So,
and even though we use TK as a possible third person, that's just an example. He's not been charged with anything. He's not, and that's just an example.
And he is Richard Kline. Oh my God.
Richard Allen, combining them like that, and we're going to create a whole new human.
Richard Allen is also innocent until proven guilty. So we want to point that out. We only, Tony Kline we bring up as an example because we've all read his name in the police.
Everybody knows who we're talking about.
Right. And they, they brought him up, he was brought up on different interviews, Barbara McDonald, other kind of stuff and things like that. So the tip line for Abby and Libby is still open. The email line is still open. Please hit that like button. If you like me. If not, then don't hit anything, because I don't want you not to like me. You'll hurt my feelings. And then please hit the subscribe button, because we are going to be doing a giveaway when we hit 200 subscribers for the Discovery Plus, a 6-month subscription to that. And it does include the ID channel, so that would be fun to watch during the holidays.
Yeah, that's more. That's a lot more true crime than you could ever hope for.
Yeah, although during the pandemic, I really feel like I watched everything that was out there. Right?
Did you get to the end of it all?
I feel like I did. I mean, I was like, Netflix, I have to cancel you. I think I've watched everything there. I've even watched reruns of stuff on the ID channel. Right? Like, I think I've solved a couple of cases while I was during the pandemic. Even I'm just
We've got a good question here. Wait, I want to know what you think. Inbred Outcast asks, do you think the defense will be able to point the finger at another suspect POI as sort of a way to create doubt, probably, or maybe that's what you're thinking.
I think
That's a tactic, isn't it?
I think that's also why that they have to make sure everything is perfect. Because there's been a lot of people that's been out there in the public, right, or on YouTube or in Reddit, who have all been thrown out there as potential suspects and things like that too. So you have to prove with information. So maybe, if you don't have certain forensics, maybe DNA, for example, then you go, do you have electronics? Do you have communications between people? Do you have CSAM between people? Do you have
faulty alibis?
Yeah. Can you put a hole in the alibis and stuff that happened? And then, if you have all of that, the other thing it comes down to is also human intelligence, meaning that it's a witness who comes forward and says, yes, this person was there.
Right.
So maybe that's what they want Richard to do. Richard, if there was somebody there with you, then tell us. And then the information and stuff is gathered from there. That's why they said it's not over. They're still gathering what info. Maybe they think there's more info even out there, more on Richard, that they're going to.
I can hear like a defense tactic being like, well, what about Ron Logan? They were found on his property. Why did you abandon that so quickly? Well, how do we know it wasn't the dead guy? Right?
Yeah.
What about, they could, because this has been a complicated case and it's gone on for so long, and there have been so many POIs and two different sketches that could work against them. I mean, there's some things that could work against them, a defense attorney, if they are going to do that. They could work some holes in there.
Everybody think about the other cases that you've seen like that in true crime, that's happened. Like, think of Casey Anthony. I mean, you know what I mean? A defense team can practically say whatever the heck they want to.
For sure.
And cause reasonable doubt amongst somebody. That's why I believe that, the judge is going to decide one way or the other of whether the probable cause gets released, what details they may share. I think they would redact it. I think they'll have to. I think they can say, at least in good conscience, hey, we released it, but we redacted everything that could hurt our other case. And guess what? I don't want that to hurt the case. I don't want anything that anybody can get out of being charged for this period. And, it is interesting to bring up Ron Logan, though, Amy, because wouldn't that be interesting that if Ron Logan was still alive, that they could sit here and go to him and say, hey, have you seen Richard on the trails before?
Yeah. Did this guy come through here like regularly?
Yep.
Did you let him hike through your property and around here did he come to this side of the creek ever?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm curious about that. Like, how familiar was he? Was he a regular?
Well,
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing. Oh, and if you guys haven't heard it, I almost forgot about this. If you hadn't heard it, that Richard came forward because he did already put himself at the scene, because he did come forward in 2017 to say that he was there, right? Walking. He was walking around, whatever. We don't know the specifics of where he said, but he did tell and confirm with the police that he was there. Now, what did he tell them? He could have said, oh, maybe because he had his phone with him, right? Maybe he did have his phone. And he just wasn't worried about his phone because he works right there in Delphi. He lives in Delphi, and the tower in Delphi is going to pick up the phone pings on him no matter what. Yeah. So he figures, hey, I normally walk from work and I, then come over here and take a walk around the.
Oh gosh. Yeah. He could be like, I take my sack lunch there every day and just it was a nice day. I sat on the bench with my sack lunch.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was there and people might have seen me there. My phone might have pinged there, but I was just having my sandwich.
Yep. Yep. And I think the other things so I think he had to give that up. Now I know in the beginning about the case that we heard that they were waiting for other witnesses to come forward, right? And there were witnesses who came, like, I think within a couple of weeks later. But it was odd because a couple of weeks later. Now you could think, hey, I was walking there and I didn't realize something happened, right? I'm not from there, maybe, or whatever.
They were hiding under a rock, didn't know.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Happened.
Right. And then supposedly the word out there, I don't know if we know this for certain necessarily on our own research yet. Amy, you tell me if, or other members of our team. I don't know if we know that in our own stuff, but the thing is that they talked about that after he said he was there, that he went into an alcohol rehab program. Now, I don't know if we've got any confirmation of where that actually was or anything like that, but I do know that that's out there too, because I know you guys are going to say that to me. Hey, have you heard about rehab? So,
I've heard it's that, or I've heard it's mental, kind of a mental health facility. But a lot of places do both. But yeah, I've heard that.
Yes.
Can't
So
verify.
we appreciate you guys being here and joining with us late and staying up with us late, or maybe just being up with us because you have insomnia like we get, and that's how you got into true crime. Whatever, whatever got you here. But we appreciate you being here. Please subscribe for you can know when we go on again and have more information for you, not just about Delphi, but other cases and research stuff that we're doing. And we appreciate you so much for being here.
Thank you for being here with us.
And we will see you guys again soon. And let's make sure justice is served daily. Thanks, guys.